Hi, thank you for your question. So I know they say that behaviors associated with autism typically don't show up until 18 months. I can remember behaviors from back when my son was like an infant that at the time, I was young. I didn't know anything about autism and he's my only child. So like I didn't really have any other experiences to compare any behaviors to, but definitely certain things like I look back and I'm like, that's definitely because that dude is autistic and that's okay. He is extremely brilliant, extremely empathetic, hilarious, and I do think a core part of him that has formed who he is that he's autistic, and that's okay. So the first thing I remember is this is when he was a baby, like he was still in a crib. So he slept next to my bed, so I'd pretty much be sleeping like right next to him. And I remember the news would be on at night, and I'd look over, and he would just be like enamored by the news. He would be looking at it like this. I'm like, why is my infant watching the freaking news all the time? And then I figured it out. You know those scrolling messages at the bottom of the screen? Well, he loved those because he loves movie credits, which a lot of autistic individuals do. Maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but I've met a lot myself. Like, we used to take him to the movie theaters, like a sensory friendly one, and you know who was autistic because they'd all line up next to the big screen and watch the credits. It was like the best part of the movie. Another thing, my son always seemed very restless. Like, I know babies like kick their legs and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But he was constantly moving his arms, his legs, constantly. It was like he was never comfortable, or that's how I interpreted it at the time. Now that I'm more like educated and aware, I totally think he was stimming, totally, because my kid, I mean, he stims like nonstop, but that's what, brings him comfort. Like, it is what it is. And I think back then, like, I really think he was stimming. These things are things like that I kind of made note of. I noticed, but they weren't things that made me say like, oh, he's autistic, because I really knew nothing about autism at all. Not only was I like very ignorant and uneducated on the topic, but I also had a very heavy bias because I went to behavioral school growing up. My school had a program for autistic students. It was very segregated, which is not right. Now that I have an autistic kid, I'm like, damn, is that legal now? I don't know. But we had kind of minimal contact with a lot of the autistic students, and sometimes when there was contact, it wasn't always good. So because of that, I did have like a negative bias in my head. So even when people started raising suspicions that like maybe he is autistic, I really fought against it. The main behavior, or lack thereof, maybe I should say, that really made people question this is because he was so non-responsive. If you said his name, he would not respond. Like, he wouldn't turn around, he wouldn't look you in the eye. They actually first started suspecting that this might be due to him being partially deaf in one ear. He got referred to an audiologist. They did a hearing exam. He failed it in one ear, so that kind of solidified the fact that like, oh, it's not that he's autistic, it's just he's partially deaf. But then he was scheduled for a sedated ABR, which is basically a hearing exam they do when someone is under like general anesthesia. And I knew the results were going to come back normal because literally right before he went in, he was walking down the hallway with my mom, like they were just passing time before it was time for him to go in, and I yelled his name and he turned around and looked at me, which he never did. And it did come back normal, and we were referred again to another audiologist. Probably my fault. I was probably fighting it at the time. I really don't remember, but checks out. And they told me, like, I think this is something behavioral, and I knew by that they meant we think he's autistic. So then we got sent to a behavioral specialist, and I continued to fight it. I remember she handed him like a little girl baby doll, and he like flung it across the room. And I saw her kind of like make a look and like write something down, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, if you handed any like young boy a baby doll, they're gonna fling it across the room, you know what I mean? So I was literally like fighting it every step of the way. It sounds messed up, but I wanted my son to have hearing loss or be partially deaf instead of being autistic, because in my head, I was like, with autism, I felt like there were so many unknowns, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like, okay, like if it's a hearing issue, we can fix it. Like, there's, I don't know if you would call it a cure, but there's like accommodations. Like, we can get this accommodated and kind of fix it, you know what I mean? But I felt like with autism, that wasn't the case, and that made me really scared. He did end up getting a diagnosis of autism pretty much exactly when he was 18 months old, and it took me a while, but I did eventually educate myself, you know what I mean? And I stopped being resistant, and I realized it wasn't, a death sentence, which I do have to say, I feel that back then, maybe not now, providers kind of made it seem like. They made it seem like I would have like this baby for the rest of my life who would be completely dependent on me and like not be able to self-advocate at all. And that's just not the case at all. Even when my son couldn't speak verbally, oh, he always had an opinion. Over time, I started noticing like other things. Like I said, he was diagnosed very young at 18 months. So he started doing things like he'd make piles of things and line things up. They were very intricate lineups, and if I accidentally moved anything at, oh my god, one time I accidentally interfered with one of his lineups. This was when he was really little. So he literally took a wet sponge from the sink, came over and smacked me in the face with it. Also, my son loved wheels. Oh my god, loved wheels. My son, we had to be so careful because like when someone was in a wheelchair, I mean, he just loved the wheels. He wanted to go up and see the wheels and spin the wheels. Thankfully, the couple of times that he did actually interact with somebody and touch their wheels, they were so understanding and everything, but I was always like so nervous because he just thought wheelchairs were so freaking cool because he just loves wheels. My son would also like go through phases where he'd walk backwards a lot. He loved to be upside down. In fact, in some of his therapies, they would let him be upside down to do some of the work because he'd focus more. Another sign, honestly, and this did also appear even when he was very little, I can even show some videos, is that he's just brilliant. Like, he's so smart. For instance, this is back like before he really spoke a lot verbally. He still had an AAC device. He could say like a couple words, like he'll say like a couple countries, but he didn't fluently speak verbally at the time. He could find any country on the globe. Like sometimes I would look up like countries I've never heard of and I'd ask him, where is this? And he'd go to the globe and he'd find it like almost immediately. It was crazy. His memory is nuts.
We're looking for Europe. Is that it? I can't see. It is, you're right. Now show me where Africa is. Where's Africa?
Another thing, he's also always been able to solve complex math problems in his head. That actually has been an issue at school at times because he doesn't want to show his work. To him, he's like, I got the answer, it's right, so why should I have to show my work? Because to him, it just, I guess, appears in his head, he just knows. But I actually have a video of him doing, like, I think this was like 3-digit equations, I don't know, look.
Is 144 divided by 12?
12.
He's correct.
No, is he really right? Okay, what is, let me think, what is 3 times 54?
162.
Oh my god, that's right. Okay. Also, he loved to spin. Ironically, he didn't like spinny rides, though. Like, he liked to be in control of the spinning. He would spin and spin and spin and spin all the time. I'd be so nervous that he was, like, gonna fall or something. And sometimes, honestly, he did, but he'd just get up and keep on spinning. Also, when he was little, I mean, he did have some interest in, like, mainstream kids shows. Like, he'd watch, like, Wally Kazam, Henry Hugglemonster, stuff like that. That was popular when he was young. But he also had very specific interests that he still has to this day. One of them's Klasky Supo, the 90s production company, like the one that produced like the Rugrats and stuff. And it's not the shows he likes, he just likes the production company and their logo. So yeah, I hope that helps. And if your child has recently gotten an autism diagnosis or they might be about to, just know life is not over. Even if your kid doesn't like literally have a voice, they still have a voice. And as long as you give them the correct tools and accommodate them so that they're able to advocate for themselves, then you'll be able to see their personality flourish, and life isn't going to be a dead end like a lot of people try to make you believe.